If movies are to be believed, then the West was won by cowboys chasing indigenous people on horseback and getting into tense gunfights at high noon. But what if you were a small child who was simply trying to survive this wild and often violent time in our history? Perhaps it may look a bit like El Hijo, a Wild West tale, a brand new stealth game where an abandoned youngster sneaks through all of the Western cliches in hopes of reuniting with his mother. Equipped with only a slingshot, sombrero, and a few special toys, this is a cute and largely non-violent take on the Old West that'll bring a smile to the face of anybody who grew up loving those classic Sergio Leone spaghetti westerns. You've already met the man with no name, so let me introduce you to the child with no name. He's the titular star who's been thrust into a situation so dangerous that even Clint Eastwood may have second thoughts about going on this adventure. He's been dropped off by his mother at a secluded monastery in hopes of protecting the boy from the local bandits. But while this may have been for the 6-year-old child's safety, he's clearly not interested in being locked up in this boring old building. Instead of being forced to do chores, he decides to break free and sneak his way through 29 harrowing stages in a last-ditch effort to reunite with his mother. As you might imagine, the kid is not exactly equipped for this Wild West world. He's not a gunslinger and doesn't even have a 6-shooter, so he'll need to avoid conflict as much as possible. This sets up an adventure where the whole goal is to stealth your way around guards, monks, cowboys, dogs, and well, anything else that might get between you and freedom. But watch out, because the child is now a wanted man, or boy, which means that just about everybody's going to be after him by the end of this surprisingly lengthy game. In a lot of ways, El Hijo is a paint-by-numbers stealth game. You'll need to stay out of the enemy's line of sight, crouch behind boxes, slip into the shadows, hide in clay jars, create distractions, and do whatever you can to avoid detection. Every level offers a slightly different challenge that will require the player to puzzle their way through all kinds of danger before eventually locating the exit. Along the way, our hero will have the opportunity to free and even inspire other kids who have been forced to do hard labor by these evil, mean adults. Beyond simply sneaking around, the boy also has a few moves that'll help to keep him safe. He comes prepared for each obstacle with a trusty slingshot, which he can use to distract guards and shoot out lights. There's also a toy that he can use to guide the guard away from ladders and walkways, as well as a stink bomb that'll make it hard for the bad guys to see. By the end of the game, we're hiding out in a sombrero and even using fireworks to stun guards and destroy boxes. All of this is playful in spirit and never too violent, so don't expect the child to suddenly start taking out enemies like a 6-year-old Solid Snake. Now, one thing that I really like about the level designs is how open and detailed they are. Most stages can be completed in a number of different ways, especially once you've earned a few of those special toys. And because there's so many different checkpoints to trigger, the game rewards players for exploring and experimenting with different strategies. I knew that even if I got caught by a guard or a dog, I wouldn't lose much progress and could try it again without risking anything. There's a freedom to the stealth action that really shines here and helps to keep the game from becoming too frustrating. That's not to say that El Hijo is too easy, but it's a whole lot more forgiving than some of the more mature games in the genre. Part of the reason for this is because the guards are really stupid. Look, I get it, this is a cliche of stealth games. But let me tell you, these enemies seem even dumber than usual. Just as long as you can jump into a box or find some other hiding spot, the child can usually avoid getting caught. Sometimes that means just ducking behind something for a couple of seconds, which is just enough time for the guards to relax and then go back to their usual routine. The enemies are incredibly bad at staying alert or even seeing a small boy that's right in front of them. And who knew that those buildings were so dark that standing just outside of a lit area meant that you were basically invisible, even if that's just an inch or two away from the bad guy? Like I said, none of this is new to the stealth genre, but I seriously couldn't get over how bad the adults were at doing relatively simple jobs. Another thing I couldn't get over was the inconsistent interaction the boy has with the levels. In theory, you should be able to snap the boy behind a box or into a hiding spot at the push of a button, but I found that it doesn't always work as well as I would have hoped. You sometimes have to hit the button a couple or maybe even a few times, which will often have this bad result where the kid will go into hiding and then quickly jump back out. The game needs to be a little bit more forgiving when it comes to interacting with the items around the stage, especially when you sometimes only have a split second to react. This also goes for the slingshot and toys, which don't always act the way they should. Thankfully, the gameplay issues aren't too frustrating, but that's mostly because the checkpointing is so damn good. Visually speaking, I really liked the look of El Hijo. The minimalist art style really stands out and keeps the game from being too serious. This is especially true of the tense shootouts, which probably should have been scary, but are played off as almost cartoony in this game. There's also a nice variety of locations, including the dreary monastery, the underground mines, the open fields, and all kinds of great outdoor stages. El Hijo is bright and inviting, even when the subject matter is dark and disturbing. It's a tough balancing act that first-time developer Honig Studios somehow gets right. The term non-violent is rarely used to describe the Wild West, but it's more than appropriate in El Hijo. This is a cute and surprisingly playful stealth game starring a 6-year-old kid on a journey to avoid guards and reunite with his mother. It hits most of the Western tropes, all without devolving into a bunch of shootouts or bar fights. It may not break new ground in the stealth genre, and some of the level interaction is a little wonky at times. But with large and varied levels that can be completed in a number of different ways, El Hijo, a Wild West tale, is an easy game to recommend. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What is your favorite child video game character? It's Mario, isn't it? Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back shortly with a review of Gangsta Paradise on Switch, followed by a fun look back at 20-year-old websites found in ancient issues of Entertainment Weekly. If that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,